blackness, reality dissolves. Men become heroes from the past, and wooden masks become spirits from another world.
So our topic here is a discussion of the idea of men becoming gods, men taking on the spirit world. In other words, the spirit world comes into the individual, the masked dancer becomes the hollow vessel into which the spirit soul invades. So each of these pieces that has been created out of the ones here, I have several examples of pieces from Africa as well as from Oceania. And these pieces really represent, again, different ceremonies, but collectively we believe that the beginnings of the relationship between humans and the spirit world has a great, deep time starting point, and as we go through time in the small hunting gathering and small agricultural societies, this is pre-state society, belief systems emerge where the individuals, the shaman, the practitioner who mediates between the world of the living, the world of the spirits, that individual is charged with an immense responsibility, because the shaman alone is the person who is making journeys in trance-like states into the world of the spirits, dealing with the spirits directly, he himself or she herself, because there are shaman that are both men and women. It's a situation where those individuals have grappled with tremendous ordeals in their own lives, have gone through the type of suffering and deprivations that are necessary to eventually, through their visions, through the vision quests they conduct, have allowed them to develop the powers into which they can deal directly with spirits on their same par. In other words, the spirits are not more powerful than the shaman himself collects or herself collect helping spirits of ancestral shaman and of powerful animals that fill the world, because the world in the pre-state society that we're talking about, the world, everything is imbued with spirit power, charged with spirit power. So this relationship between the shaman and the spirit world is this powerful relationship. It provides the shaman the powers to cure, and of course the spirits of evil, the spirits of disease are what invade the bodies of people that fall ill and in some cases cease to live. But it's the type of structure in which, since everything in the world is imbued with spirit power, the water, the air, all of the vegetation, all of the animals, each and every maneuver that an individual goes through in their lifetime has to take into account this powerful spirit-charged universe in which the people live. Therefore, the shaman becomes the mediator between the world of the living and the world of the dead, or the world of the profane and the world of the sacred. So each of these pieces then is created, for instance, this Ibo piece is created as an ancestor mask. The ancestors at the time of death become very revered. They become a point of exceptional power themselves, They have to be propitiated correctly. Offerings are made to them. The individual ancestor is truly represented in these carvings because each individual had their own particular hairstyle. In a lot of the African groups, they had their own particular scarification marks, in other words, where the skin was cut and clay or soot was rubbed into the cut, and that then made a raised design on the person's face or other body parts. The mask here, which is a Pendi mask from Central Africa. Again, this piece is a mask that absolutely a shaman piece, that's a mediation piece between the world of the living, the world of the dead. When this mask was danced, the dancer was transformed from the individual who's just another member of the society into the particular spirit that's represented by this image. The Echo peoples carved these rather arresting and rather horrific pieces in a lot of ways. They coated them with hide. This has skin stretched over the wood carving. It's antelope skin. Again, this is a piece which is depicting a powerful ancestor individual. The pieces here from New Guinea. This piece is a piece that is actually a yam spirit mask. The yam as a foodstuff was critical to the people. It was one of their basic staples, the root crops of yams, sweet potatoes, and so on. And when you stored these in the food huts, these masks, as well as small masks, were produced, and there were ceremonies held to assure not only the success and the continuation of the crops, but actually to ward off the evil spirits that would, in too quickly a process, rot the crops. So these masks have a deep, deep and very important meaning within the Worcester society. This piece, again, is an ancestor piece, and again, it's from New Guinea. It's very important because the people in New Guinea, especially in the highlands of New Guinea, have a myth that as the earth was formed, there was a race between a bird and a snake. If the snake won, humans, like snakes, would have eternal life. If the bird won, humans, like birds, would have a predictable life, in other words, which ultimately shifted a person from life to death. The way in which their bird ancestral background is depicted, the people themselves actually have structurally quite long, narrow faces, but they exaggerate in their carvings this nasal area that comes down to take on the effect as a bird, in other words, a beak effect. So again, this is an ancestor piece. It's representing, though, the broad spirit protectors of the people. And whenever one of these masks is danced, of course, the people were completely, their body covering was complete, and then something like this, when you put it up, the identity of the individual is lost. In other words, the individual, like I say, becomes a hollow receptacle into which the spirit takes residence, and the utterances during those ceremonies then are not the utterances of the individual, they're the utterances of the spirit world. Whenever humans in various areas of the world come to the point of affecting the extraction of metal as a mineral and begin to molt it, they learn the process of molting metal, forming it, shaping it, pouring it. In Africa, it's quite early. In fact, Africa may be the cradle of bronze casting. The individuals that were directly responsible for working those materials are the same groups that produce the masks. They're the shaman. They become the shaman, quote, blacksmiths. And there's a mythology in numbers of groups in Africa, a story, a creation story of the blacksmith stealing a piece of the sun. So the metal itself becomes this sweat of the gods, this piece of the sun. And that's in this following part of this episode, we're looking at the casting of a series of masks that are being done by the lost wax process, where the molten metal here is being brought out of the kilns and poured into molds. The molds contained images made in wax, and then the mold was made around that wax. These molds were put in a kiln. The wax was vaporized or melted out, leaving the hollow receptacle to receive the molten metal. So what Rick is doing here is bringing the metal out of the forge, bringing the molds out of the kiln. Because they have to be kept at a high temperature, you couldn't pour the high temperature molten metal into cold molds or they'd shatter. And then the next thing we see here is breaking our finished products, which are these replicas from a number of different culture areas of the world of masks, which the students in the class have replicated. Numbers of culture, a number of African culture areas have been replicated, as well as some Northwest Coast culture areas, as well as, in this case, Oceania. So again, the intent here is to try to convey the fact that these ceremonies represent the most archaic, ancient ceremonies that connect with humankind. And as